So there I was, sitting in my friend's living room last Friday night, trying to enjoy what was supposed to be a chill hangout with my closest friends and their partners. I'm 25, single by choice, and honestly pretty content with my life. The wine was flowing, everyone was laughing, and then Sarah's boyfriend, Marcus, started up with his opinions. Again. It started innocently enough. Someone mentioned a mutual friend's recent breakup, and Marcus seized the opportunity like he'd been waiting for it all night. "You know what the problem is," he said, leaning back into the couch like he was about to deliver some profound wisdom. "Women today just don't want to be traditional wives anymore. That's why so many of them end up alone." I felt my jaw tighten, but I kept quiet. Sarah shot me a look across the room, this weird, apologetic smile that I'd seen before when Marcus got on one of his rants. I took a sip of my drink and tried to focus on the conversation happening on the other side of the room. But Marcus wasn't done. Not even close. He kept going, his voice getting louder and more animated. Back in the day, women understood their role. They took care of their husbands, kept the house clean, had dinner ready. They did it without complaining because that's what a good wife does. That's what made relationships work. I watched Sarah from the corner of my eye. She was staring down at her phone, pretending to be engrossed in something on the screen. Her shoulders were tense. This wasn't the first time I'd heard Marcus go off like this, but it was definitely the most intense. Usually he'd drop a comment here or there, but tonight he was on a full-blown crusade. "Women today want everything," he continued, gesturing wildly with his beer. "They want careers. They want independence. They want men to treat them like queens. But they don't want to do the traditional things that came with that treatment. You can't have it both ways." I bit my tongue so hard I thought it might bleed. Around me, I could feel the energy in the room shift. A couple of people nodded along, others looked uncomfortable. No one was saying anything, though. Everyone just let him talk. For about 15 more minutes, I listened to this man who barely worked 40 hours a week lecture us about traditional gender roles. I watched my friend, my smart, hardworking friend who pulled 50-hour weeks at her job, shrink into the couch while her boyfriend pontificated about how women had lost their way. Finally, I couldn't take it anymore. "Marcus," I said, cutting him off mid-sentence. "Can I ask you something?" He looked surprised that someone was actually engaging with him. "Sure, what?" "How exactly do you expect to have a traditional wife when Sarah pays half your rent and works way more hours than you do?" The room went dead silent. You could have heard a pin drop. Marcus's face went from surprise to confused to red in about 3 seconds flat. Before we continue, if you're invested in how this turns out, show some love with a like and subscribe. But I wasn't done. The floodgates had opened, and everything I'd been holding back came pouring out. "You're sitting here talking about traditional wives and traditional roles, but you're not a traditional husband. A traditional husband provides for his household, so his wife can stay home and do all those duties you're talking about. Sarah can't be your traditional wife because she's too busy working to keep a roof over both your heads." His mouth opened and closed like a fish out of water. I could feel everyone's eyes on me, but I kept going. "Honestly, it sounds like you don't want a wife at all. You want another mommy, someone to cook and clean and take care of you while you do what? Work part-time and complain about women?" The silence that followed was deafening. Marcus stared at me, his face now completely red. Then he said quietly but firmly, "Your way of thinking just proved my point exactly." I almost laughed. "How? How does calling out your hypocrisy prove anything except that you want the benefits of traditional gender roles without any of the responsibilities?" Someone changed the subject then, probably to save us all from the awkwardness. The conversation moved to safer topics, sports or movies, or something equally neutral. I thought that was the end of it. Marcus sulked for the rest of the evening, but I figured he'd get over it. We all went home around midnight, and I didn't think much more about it. Then the next morning, I woke up to a text from Sarah. "Hey, can we talk? Marcus is really upset about what you said last night. He feels like you embarrassed him in front of everyone, and he wants you to apologize." I read the message 3 times, certain I was missing something. Apologize? For what? For defending her, for pointing out facts? I called Sarah immediately. "Are you serious right now?" I asked as soon as she picked up. She sighed, that long, tired sigh that told me she'd been dealing with Marcus's wounded ego all morning. "Look, I don't think you're wrong," she started, which should have been reassuring, but somehow wasn't. "But I don't think you're entirely right either. Marcus had been drinking. You should have just let him talk." "Let him talk?" I repeated, my voice rising despite my best efforts to stay calm. Sarah, he was basically saying you and every other woman who works is somehow failing at being a woman. How was I supposed to just sit there and listen to that? I know, she said quietly. I know it sounded bad, but he's my boyfriend. I have to have his back too, not just yours. That hurt more than I expected it to. We'd been friends for 7 years. We'd been there for each other through breakups, job losses, family drama, everything. And now she was asking me to apologize to a man who'd spent 20 minutes insulting women, including her, because his feelings were hurt. We talked for over an hour. I tried to understand her position, I really did. She was caught between her friend and her boyfriend, and that's never easy. But the more we talked, the more frustrated I became. She kept saying she understood my point, but that I should have handled it differently. She kept making excuses for him, blaming the alcohol, saying he didn't really mean it like that. Sarah, I finally said, exhausted from going in circles, I'm not going to apologize. I said what needed to be said, and honestly, I don't want Marcus around me anymore. If he can't respect women, including you, then I don't need to spend my time with him. She got quiet. Then she said, her voice shaky, "That's not fair. You're asking me to choose between you and him." "I'm not asking you to choose anything," I replied, though we both knew that wasn't entirely true. "I'm just setting a boundary. I won't apologize for defending myself and other women from his outdated nonsense, and I won't pretend to be okay around someone who clearly doesn't respect me." We said goodbye shortly after that. It wasn't angry or dramatic, just sad. Really, really sad. I sat on my couch afterward, staring at my phone, feeling like I just lost one of my closest friends over a man who couldn't handle being called out on his hypocrisy. The worst part is, I don't regret what I said. Not even a little bit. Marcus needed to hear it. Maybe Sarah did too. But losing a 7-year friendship over it? That hurts more than I expected. I keep replaying the conversation in my head, wondering if I could have said it differently, or if staying quiet would have been better in the long run. But then I remember Marcus's face, so confident and self-righteous, and Sarah's shoulders hunched over while he talked. No, I don't regret it. Sometimes standing up for what's right costs you something. This time it might have cost me a friendship, and I have to find a way to be okay with that. What would you have done in this situation? Let me know in the comments. And if you enjoyed this, subscribe and hit that bell icon for notifications.